with the author of Amazon's #1 best-selling book, Reclaiming My Life. Here's life coach Claudia Massey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reclaiming My Life. Today, I am so excited. I know y'all say she always excited, and am. Today, I have a beautiful, beautiful special guest and someone who is very special to me. I only met her, just a few weeks ago at a sister check-in conference. The first annual sister check-in conference. Shout out to Latoya Gerard, the visionary of this conference. When I tell you that it was so powerful and so needed, I felt like I was in group therapy. And this woman here today, my special guest, she plays such a huge part in making me feel that I wasn't alone, as we always talk about here on Reclaiming My Life. Y'all help me welcome Miss Rhonda Thompson.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Claudia, for having me on. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
I'm so excited for you to be here. You are so welcome. I'm glad you accepted the invitation so that you can bless the people the way you have blessed me in just a short time. Look, y'all, Rhonda, if you would, just let the people know a little bit about yourself.
Okay, sure. Well, I always start off with my age because most people are shocked by that. I am 58 years old. I am Italian, originally from New York. I have 5 adult children, 12 biological grands, 1 great-granddaughter. Trauma is my specialty. I am a counselor and I'm certified for trauma, addiction, family violence, LGBTIQ family violence, MRT, grief, and a lot of other things. But I basically got certified in every single thing I've ever been through.
Wow,
So that's
come on
short,
now.
That's a short version.
Look, y'all, that's why I let her do it. You heard that, Liz. But certified in trauma, and this is what I want to talk about today, is trauma. Here on Reclaiming My Life, we always have guests to come on and they share stories of things, or testimonies rather, of things that they've experienced in life, whether it was a trial or trauma, how they overcame and reclaimed their lives. And today, Rhonda, I want us to just talk a little bit about trauma, and how trauma affects everyday healthy living. Could you shed some light on that for us?
Sure. Every trauma that you have ever been through, whether you experienced or whether you witnessed it or heard it, it takes up residence in your body somewhere. And it has physiological and biological, mental, psychosocial effects on your body. There's an amazing book called The Body Keeps the Score. So literally everything you've ever been through is recorded in your body. And a lot of people don't realize that trauma is the root of a lot of disease in our bodies, because I think it's something like 85% of all disease comes from unresolved grief and unresolved anger. And that's like a whole show in itself. But trauma affects you not just psychologically, but it also affects you physically. And a lot of times people don't realize the things they're going through can be directly related back to the trauma that they went through if they have not processed it yet.
Mm-hmm. Yes. How often do you see, or would you say, Rhonda, that a lot of people have experienced trauma, but don't even realize that they experienced the trauma, or are suffering from PTSD from that trauma?
That's pretty consistent, Claudia, because depending on how you were brought up, I tell people all the time, whatever you were brought up in, that's your normal, and you recreate your normal when you get older. So like, for example, my normal growing up, my mother was an alcoholic. There was a lot of violence. There was a lot of sexual abuse. There was a lot. So that was normal to me. Mm-hmm. So then when I looked for relationships later on, guess who I tended to gravitate towards? Mm-hmm. The people that did the same thing, because that was familiar. It's not normal in the sense of it's okay. It's a familiarity. Mm-hmm. That's what I call your normal. And you actually recreate that without even realizing it, because anything outside of that tends to feel not normal or not you don't know how to act in it. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times we'll push away the very things that are good for us, and we will gravitate towards the things that are common to us.
Right, absolutely. And also I see, a lot of times when children are growing up, and they can be in a home where they're seeing and witnessing
Hmm.
domestic violence, or, their parents are alcoholics,
Hmm.
and they'll say, or not even say, but they can grow and become adults and they'll, I will never do that. I saw
Hmm.
how this destroyed my parents. Or
Hmm.
either, like you said, the familiar behavior, then they will do that. So,
Hmm.
what percentage would you say, if you can, where when children grow up, they say, that's not something I want to do because I saw,
Hmm.
how it affected my parents and what it did to me and my siblings.
That happens more often than you realize, because another way that trauma affects like a growing, developing child is trauma actually changes the DNA in your brain. It actually changes the way that you think, the way that you process. It changes your entire chemical makeup. Like it'll keep you in a state of fight or flight. And if you're coming from a state of fight or flight your entire life, then your body is always on the defense. So it doesn't know to disengage from that.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, I mean, everybody that I deal with, they say that, I never thought I would do this.
Mm-hmm.
Or I hear my mother's words coming out of my mouth, or I see my father's face, or I swore I would never do the same thing. And they'll usually go one of two ways. They're either the exact opposite or the exact same. There
Mm-hmm.
really isn't an in between. Because you're like, my mom was an alcoholic, but I never got involved in alcohol or drugs because I was
Mm-hmm.
like, the last thing I want to do is be like my mom.
Right.
But other people will be like, well, that was normal to them. So it all depends on which way you go.
Right, absolutely. And you mentioned fight and flight. So if you
Hmm.
would, some people may not understand the fight, flight, or freeze. So can you
Right.
touch on that?
Sure. That is your body's normal reaction to stress. There's actually four. It's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And fight is, you think there is an impending threat of danger. So you're going to fight. Just like, if you back a dog into a corner, eventually, no matter how cute the dog is,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to bite you
Mm-hmm.
once they feel threatened. Flight is you are scared that there's no possible way to win this. So you're going to take off or you're going to leave. You're going to run. Freeze is you are paralyzed in the fear and you can't move. Fawn is what a lot of people do when they engage in people pleasing behaviors. It's called fawn, where you don't want to disrupt any conflict at all. So you'll
Mm-hmm.
avoid conflict at all costs,
Right.
and you'll adapt like a chameleon. That's called fawning.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for touching on
Mm-hmm.
that because really, it took me to a place. And, that's what this
Mm-hmm.
sister conference was about,
Mm-hmm.
listening to so many different women tell their testimonies and then you seeing yourself in just a little part of everybody's story. But just now, as we're talking about fight, flight, and freeze, it took me to my sexual trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just where I just froze.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, Rhonda, when we experience such trauma as sexual trauma, people always ask us why we didn't do certain things. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like you never know what you will do until you're in the situation. But, when we're talking about sexual trauma, why, if we can, I mean, why do we freeze? Why do we, fight? So can you give us
Mm-hmm.
some examples on why we react certain ways? Would you say it depends on who who is violating us?
Yeah, that gets to be pretty complicated because I also, Claudia, I have a history of sexual abuse too,
Mm-hmm.
from somebody that I knew and
Right.
from family members. And the thing is, with the family members, um, it's somebody you love and you trust,
Right.
right? So you feel like you're supposed to because this is somebody you love and you trust, and it usually comes with a threat. You better not tell
Mm-hmm.
anybody. And then with the other one, that was a direct threat. My mother's boyfriend, one of her boyfriends said, if you say anything, I will hurt your sister.
Mm-hmm.
And that resonated with me because there was a time when I was little that she was about to fall off the bed, and I went to catch her, and then my mother just saw that my sister was falling off the bed, but then she threw me across the room and she's like, why didn't you protect your sister? It's your
Mm-hmm.
job to protect your sister. So when this gentleman said this to me, he didn't realize the hold it would have on me.
Right.
So, when bad things happen, we're always trying to make them right when
Mm-hmm.
we get another chance. So I stayed still thinking that I was protecting my sister, but then in the act of it, your body can't comprehend all of that. So I did what was called dissociate. I kind of like it was watching a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of laid there. And then I was going through all these different things because I didn't know one, why my body was reacting,
Mm-hmm.
because I was at that age. So I felt dirty. I felt tainted. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like it was my fault.
Yes.
I felt if I say anything that my sister's going to get in trouble. And there was just a lot of different components
Mm-hmm.
that caused me to freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everybody else would be different, but a lot of people will ask, why didn't you fight, or why didn't you leave, or why didn't you tell? And I've been in domestic violent relationships too, and people are like, well, why don't you just leave her? Man just hits me one time, that's all it takes. And
Mm-hmm.
no, you don't know until you're in the situation. There's a
Absolutely.
lot of things that play up to how you were brought up, what you think, and where
Mm-hmm.
you are in the middle of that situation. So
Right.
that's not a definite answer. It depends on the person. It depends on the situation. It depends on the abuser, what their connection is with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I truly believe that, because, coaching with my clients, and I hear, when it's family members, no one really says anything,
Mhm.
because they are afraid because, no one's going to believe me or I'm going to disrupt
Mhm.
the family dynamic. It's just so many, like you said, so many components to, why we react or why we don't do certain things. But, of course, now what I have learned is if we can't hear you, we can't help you,
Mhm.
so unmute. It's not going to be the end of the world, and of course, I didn't know that then, so somebody may be looking at me today saying, well, why didn't you do it then? So because I have learned and now I'm trying to help you, I'm telling you, it's not going to be the end
Mhm.
of the world. Yes, you're going to have some family members who will disown you or may not talk to you anymore or, whatever the situation may be. But there's nothing like liberation, just being free, not holding that inside anymore. You're now able to just live your life freely. So Rhonda, with you being able to talk about, all the traumas that you've experienced, and now you are a coach and a counselor, how do you feel?
I agree with you on that. And I really do believe that everything we go through is for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just to get yourself out of it, but it's to go back and help other people
Mm-hmm.
because as not strong as you feel, you're stronger than you think you are. And you actually have the blueprint for the other person. And you have the answers for them. And I think that's part of our gift, uh,
Yes.
that we go back and we help other people because we don't want them to hurt. Now, not everybody can be in this profession. It takes a strong person,
Mm-hmm.
to be in it. But I do believe that everything comes together the way that it's supposed to. And then like when you were saying about not telling, there's so many things with that too. Like especially if it's a pastor that is the abuser, if it's
Mm-hmm.
a official, if it's a somebody of rank, you could actually have retaliation. It could be not safe for the person to say. It all depends,
Mm-hmm.
on their situation. And the best thing you
Yes.
can do is believe them because when they do tell their story, they get re-victimized over and over and over, having to tell their story again. And that's a
Yes.
secondary trauma. And there's just so many things that go into it. And believing somebody is the first thing, and listening and just being there. And you can't fix it. Just being there and asking, how can I support you? What do
Mm-hmm.
you need from me in this moment? But safety is the first and foremost thing. And if it's going
Absolutely.
anything that's going to put them in an unsafe environment, Like, even if people are planning to leave, I always tell them, you never tell your abuser you're about to leave.
Mm-hmm.
You plan an escape route, and you never, ever, ever tell them, because that's when everything escalates even more. Because I think it's 85% of women get killed when they try to leave a relationship
Mm-hmm.
because of the abuser. So there's like so many different things. I would say connect with your area women's resources group, because
Mm-hmm.
most counties have a women's resource group, or they have a crisis line. They have domestic violence shelters, and just for anything that you're going through trauma wise, definitely
Yes.
somebody locally, speak to somebody. And if somebody doesn't believe you, whether it's a counselor or anybody, that's not the right counselor. You need to go to the next person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just want to say, parents, please, provide that safe space for your children. Be comfortable enough and make them feel comfortable enough to have the conversations with them, as I did with my children, even when they were small, and I said to them, I don't care if it's the pastor, if it's my brother, if it's my husband, you have to put yourself in a position not to trust anyone, because we see too often that it is family members or people, who we are close to and people who we love that will actually take advantage of you and your child. So, make sure that you're open to listen to your children and not say, don't say that, or that's not true, because, where else and who else will they turn to? So, final words, Rhonda, if you would, please let the people know how they can connect with you.
Sure. I'd be happy to. And I just want to say one last thing. When
Hmm.
somebody does tell you, anything trauma wise, not only do you believe them, but you help them the best way that you can.
Yes.
Because, and you don't say to them, well, it also happened to me too, so it's no big thing. You don't normalize trauma. You don't normalize abuse, because that's another thing that
Thank you
keeps
for
people from
that.
reporting.
I needed you
Um,
then.
right. But yeah, you can reach me. My website is totalbreakthroughcenter.com, and on Facebook, I'm Rhonda Thompson. You got to look at my picture to see me, because there's a lot of Rhonda Thompsons. But on Instagram, I'm Rhonda TNATL.
All right, now y'all got it, and we're going to make sure we put it in the chat as well. We are Facebook Live here today. Rhonda, thank you so much for joining me here today. I'm going to definitely have to have you back because, for the both of us, we can talk about this all day because we're coaches and this is what we love, to help people and to let you all know that there is hope. We're here. We're sharing our own testimonies of trials and trauma. But, hey, there's hope that you too can reclaim your life. And remember, if we can't hear you, we can't help you. Unmute. Y'all be blessed.
You have just heard Reclaiming My Life with life coach and author Claudia Massey. To get your copy of Amazon's #1 best-selling book, Reclaiming My Life, visit the website www.contactclaudiamassey.com. And tune in each Monday at 12 noon for Reclaiming My Life with Coach Claudia Massey here on WBTK 1380.
Radio Poder te trae la enseñanza de hoy